Hi, everybody, and welcome to Girl Talk, Keeping Girls Interested in STEM, presented by the staff of Reinvented magazine during the Virtually Maker Faire 2020. We are so excited to have you here today, ready for this panel and to chat with you about how we can keep young girls interested in STEM. So I have some fantastic young women here who are all part of our Reinvented team. So I'd love to introduce you to a few of our contacts. We have Kaylee, who is our founder and president of Reinvented magazine. Can you wave? Awesome. We have Peyton, who's the director of community engagement. We have Erica, who's a member of our ops team. And we have Ashni, who is a member of our marketing team. And my name's Renee Becker-Blau, and I will be your moderator. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Reinvented. So, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so pleased to have you here. I think this is a really important topic. Let's start off by sharing a little bit more about Reinvented magazine. Kaylee, as founder and president, can you tell us a little bit about how Reinvented magazine was started and the mission of the organization?
Sure. So Reinvented magazine aims to inspire and empower the next generation of young girls to pursue STEM fields. So that's science, technology, engineering, and math. This all started about 2 years ago when I got my last issue of 17 magazine, and I realized that I didn't really want to read any of the content anymore. I didn't really care about how hot Justin Bieber was or anything like that, and I flipped straight to the back and just read the Trauma-Rama and the horoscopes. And I really wanted a magazine that I could read that, after going through college and getting my degree in aerospace engineering, that aligned more with my interests in STEM. And so the idea for Reinvented magazine kind of was born. And I knew that I didn't want a magazine that was like your stereotypical STEM magazine. Those already exist, and all they feature are men. I wanted to be able to read about women like myself who were achieving amazing things in STEM fields. So Reinvented. And now we have over 7,500 readers all over the world in 49 different states, 15 different countries, reading with our 4th issue about to come out. And it's been really exciting. So each issue features a different set of STEM role models who are professionals in the STEM fields. We've done quantum physicists who are also ballerinas, biologists, chemists, future astronauts. It's been crazy. But yeah, so that's Reinvented.
Wonderful. All right, so looking at kind of our theme for today, what activities and hobbies did you have at a young age that really helped pique your interest in STEM? Peyton, why don't we start with you? Can you share a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, sure. So when I look back upon this time, I really just had a diverse activities and a lot of different interests, and that my parents really encouraged me to pursue. So like I'd be playing with my Barbies, and then I'd be playing with my Polly Pockets, but then I'd build something for them with my Legos. Or my parents bought me Hot Wheels, and I just had a big imagination. So I would literally have my Hot Wheels out, and I'd pretend that my Barbies would like shrink and get into their Hot Wheels. And so having those cars, you kind of get some more mechanical stuff that boys are typically told, should be of interest to them. So I would just encourage anybody to just pursue like hobbies that require a lot of imagination and curiosity and just problem solving.
Fantastic. And Ashni, do you like to include a little bit more?
Yeah, so when I was in middle school, my dad told me to try out for a club, and his rationale was school is great and classes are great, but you don't ever earn a grade in clubs. You get to try things and you get to fail, and you don't have to worry about a grade. And so he encouraged me to try out for my school's robotics team. And ever since then, I've been doing robotics my entire life. And I think it gave me a really great background into STEM because it was the only hands-on type of activity I got to do where I got to really see. I got to go from design to actual robot and go, hey, I did that. That's what STEM is.
I love that. My background, I actually was involved in the same program, the first program, and one of the coolest things was just being able to really go through that problem-solving process, and it's one of the reasons that I'm such an advocate of STEM in terms of making sure that every student, regardless of gender, race, or socioeconomic status, can really get access to, can choose if they want to go into a STEM career. All right, so I know that mentors are such a critical and important part of, being able to be in STEM. As Sally Ride said, if you can't be what you can't see. And so in terms of your inspirations or mentors, Erika, who inspired you to go into this STEM area?
So for me growing up, I really looked up to my teachers because they really welcomed me into STEM and kind of they inspired me. A lot of them actually did happen to be women. I was just blown away by their perseverance and their willingness to help out young people. And they also introduced me to girls who were really, really interested in STEM who were slightly a little bit older than me. I've noticed a lot when it comes to young girls, at least for me, I always looked up to girls who were 3 or 4 years older because I knew that that was where I was going to be. So I wanted to see what inspired them and what kind of interests and different things that they were doing, which activities they were doing. So having teachers and mentors who were close to my age was really important to me. And even some of my friends, they introduced me to, like, some of them had like pink Legos and things like that when I was really little. And it was really just finding that community of people who I knew were very inspirational.
Awesome. That's brilliant. And, Kaylee, what about you in terms of that engagement?
Yeah, so for me, it's always been my mom. I was so lucky growing up. My mom is actually an engineer herself. She worked on the aircraft carriers for the Navy. So growing up, I had like schematics all over my house. And for like the first 8 years of my life, I was dead set on being a fashion designer. But if you go back and you look at pictures of me in like 4th and 5th grade, you absolutely know that that was not meant to be. And any pictures that you found where my clothes actually matched, it was because my mom picked them out for me. So 6th grade came around and my mom was like, have you ever thought about trying out STEM? And I was like, no, I'm going to be a fashion designer, Mom. You know what you're talking about. And she dragged me to a first robotics meeting at my local Girl Scout council. And that's where like my love for STEM sparked. At that moment, after seeing the robots, kind of messing around with them and learning about, especially the programming part of it, I knew that I didn't know how or what or where it was going to fit in, but STEM needed to be a part of my life. And I'm so glad that she dragged me to that meeting because here I am now kind of pursuing STEM and I have a career in aerospace engineering, and it's all because of her support for me, my imagination, like Peyton said, and my passion for robotics and computing.
Awesome. I think that those are kind of great examples for, anyone who has younger, daughters, people who could, kind of get involved with these hobbies, go through that problem solving process, or even like point to people that they can look up to. I mean, all of those are kind of good examples for this next question of how could you get young women involved with STEM? So, all right. Ashni?
So personally, with the first program, ever since falling in love with it, I saw that there was a younger level at first, and it wasn't that hard to set up. So I set up a first LEGO League junior team for a bunch of 8-year-old Girl Scouts in my community. And just the look on their faces when they programmed the very first thing, it was drag and drop programming, but the fact that they made something move was incredible to them. And the fact that it was an all-girl team meant they were all supporting each other, and they were kind of able to see that, hey, I can do this. I'm going to do this more in the future. But I think on a level that everybody can relate to, my parents, whenever I was little, they used to show me, I used to always want to be an engineer. And so they used to show me, hey, you know this like screw, this is STEM. Or like they used to point out examples of how STEM applies in my everyday life so that I would become interested in it.
Fantastic. And I love the First LEGO League Junior program. One of the things that is really neat is that they kind of focus on a broader problem. And so you are solving problems in like people's communities. And so that really attaches to this idea that, you can help people through engineering. What about Peyton? What are your thoughts about getting, young women involved with STEM?
Yeah, so I was involved with some organizations. I went to this camp called Camp Invention when I was in elementary school. And then I was in like an engineering club in high school. But I think more than anything, just encouragement. And sometimes these opportunities aren't always available. Like I was the first girl to take a programming class at my high school. And it didn't fit in my schedule, but, I went and talked to the principal. My mom helped me, and then I was able to. And then it's kind of been touched on before, but just showing real world applications. So even if your kid is interested in soccer, you can maybe tell them the physics behind what they're doing, give them a mini lesson. Or if they really like music, talk to them about sound waves. Just show them that STEM exists in everyday settings, even with cooking. These little things can really help them see, because often at a young age, you never really get to see what's actually done in the STEM world.
Fantastic. And then what about being an advocate or supporter? So regardless of gender, you know, everyone can really help support getting these girls involved in STEM. And so Kaylee, do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, for sure. So like I said earlier, I was really lucky in the fact that my mom was an engineer. However, you absolutely do not need to be an engineer or a woman in STEM to be an advocate or supporter for your daughter, or any other young girls you know who are trying to get into the STEM field. The biggest part of it, and it was great that my mom could help me out with all my math problems. However, the biggest thing that helped was the fact that she never said no. She was always there every time I came up with a crazy idea for some crazy project or invention or whatever it was. She never told me that I couldn't do it. And on days where someone else told me that I couldn't do it, she was there with a cup of tea, either virtually while I was in college or, there sitting next to me on the couch while I wasn't. Ready to, just kind of be that shoulder to cry on and continue to remind me that it doesn't matter if I'm a woman or who the heck I am. I can do everything that I want to do. And if that's STEM, then that's great. So I think that that's really important. And I think the other part to this too is the whole gender piece. You absolutely do not need to be a woman to support your future women in STEM. Growing up, I had a lot of male allies that supported me. My dad also was an engineer. He also was the one who was staying up late with me, coming up with all of my science fair projects. I had some amazing, my earth science teacher is one of the ones I always throw out. He taught in such a way that advocated for all different kinds of learners. So he would sing songs about the rain cycle, and he would make sure that he had pictures up and videos up, and he would write on the board. So he had a lot of different tools for everyone in the class to learn. And that was really helpful. And just, it comes back to just not telling them no, always being there when they need you. It doesn't matter what your gender is or what you do or what your background's in to do that.
Amazing. And then Erica, can you kind of expand on that in terms of, advice you have for how to be an advocate, a supporter, et cetera?
Absolutely. I completely agree with Kaylee. You don't have to be in the STEM field to be an advocate. One of my mentors who I met just a couple of months ago, his background is in video production, but he's starting his own nonprofit called the STEM Van. And he's really trying to get involved with many organizations that support women in STEM. And one thing that I've realized over the years is that your network is often bigger than you think. You never know how many connections you might have, and just by reaching out to somebody, they could have people to get you in contact with. And I remember my mom actually, this was back in high school, back at parent-teacher conferences, she talked to my math teacher. She said, Erika really loves math, and she's looking for more opportunities to kind of get involved with science. And my math teacher said, maybe we can start a chapter of Girls Who Code. So there's so many different avenues and ways that you can be an advocate.
Fantastic. And, I know that there are a lot of resources that are out there in terms of these pieces. I think we have about, maybe 15 more minutes left. So looking at resources or materials that you can kind of point people to. I know that, Reinvented is doing a lot to keep girls interested in STEM once that kind of spark happens. Kaylee, do you want to kind of expand on what we're doing? And then we can kind of all provide some examples of resources that we've used and would kind of recommend for people to check out.
Yeah, for sure. So Reinvented, like I said, our biggest resource is our magazine. Right now, we are actually, because of COVID and all the virtual learning that's going on, we're offering both digital copies of issue 1 and 2 for free to any students, parents, educators who are kind of stuck at home looking for something to do. But I think that the magazine provides the role models. And I think we mentioned this several times before, and that role models are so important. When girls read our magazine, they see themselves on the pages. They can relate to the stories, and they they feel like they belong in the STEM community. And that resource is completely, priceless, because that's what girls need to continue to stay interested. We also continue to take that, the role models, and then we keep the learning going off the page. So in the back of every issue, we have a DIY, which is pretty much an at-home science experiment that you can do with things that you can easily find around your house, your apartment, or just at your local general store. And that's a way to continue, read about a robotics engineer, and then, make your own robot at home, or learn about a hardware engineer and create your own wearable tech device at home. And then we also host some events. So we have an upcoming one called the STEAM Dreamers Virtual Panel Series, which is super exciting, where we're actually bringing in women in STEM who are kicking butt in their fields, and you can sit down and actually ask them your questions in live time. So that I think is the most exciting of the upcoming things that Reinvented's offering girls to continue that spark in STEM, especially during this hard time.
Awesome. And then I think one of the really critical pieces, besides, maybe giving a couple more examples of some awesome resources like Girls Who Code and things like that, is just, where can these young girls turn to if they start feeling discouraged? Or, if they're having maybe a challenging time with some of these aspects? That anyone can feel free to answer that question.
So I can chime in here, and feel free, guys, to jump in. But I think the biggest thing is knowing that you're not alone. So obviously you're looking at a panel of girls in STEM, we exist. We're not unicorns, we are real. I'm not saying unicorns aren't real. It's totally a possibility. But we're here to help you. And I've never turned anyone down who's asked me for help. And there are so many communities out there. So for me personally, I got involved in NCWIT, the National Center for Women in Information Technology. And they have such a huge community, tens of thousands of girls involved in this, where, if I'm having a rough day and my mom's not there with her virtual cup of tea, I go online and I post in the Facebook group and say, hey, my life sucks right now. I'm, total women in STEM discouragement moment. How can you help me out? And within 5 minutes, I have thousands of girls replying to my my message saying, it's all good. I'm here. Do you need to chat? Let's hop on a call. And that's so huge. Knowing that I have that support system there, anytime I get discouraged, it reminds me that, yes, I belong here, and that I can continue to, most of the time it was I can continue to pursue my degree. And then once I got out of college, it was, yes, I will continue to be the only girl in meetings for a little while until our, Reinvented magazine readers grow up into STEM. But, there are other girls out there who are, ready to kind of kick butt on my behalf. So.
I have another good resource that I think was really helpful to me. A couple months ago, I discovered there's an organization called Built by Girls that has this program called the WAVE program. And girls can sign up to be matched up with a mentor, and you do 3 different call sessions with them. And they kind of answer any questions you have. But the good thing about this program is that it's meant specifically for those girls who feel discouraged, or who feel like they don't know what's going on, or they don't know how to continue when they're discouraged. And another thing is, like Kaylee said, being a supporter or an advocate, you trying to be that type of person that young girls can turn to is really important, whether it's just listening to their struggles or encouraging them by telling them your own story. Being an advocate is the best way to provide a resource for girls to come to when they feel discouraged.
I love that. And I think that the resource piece is really important. I mentioned Girls That Code, or Girls Who Code. We obviously have the Reinvented magazine. What are some other resources that y'all have seen out there? NCWIT was another mention. Erika, Peyton, do you have any resources that you've seen that have been incredibly valuable to you?
There's actually.
Oh, go ahead,
Oh,
Erika.
no, it's okay. I was just gonna say I've been in the Society of Women Engineers at my college for almost my entire time at college, and one thing an initiative that we're trying to get involved with is it's called Sweet Nexters, where members of the Society of Women Engineers come into classrooms and kind of introduce the girls into STEM through different hands-on activities, and just all seeing them as role models is something that I'm very, very excited about for my chapter to get involved with.
So I was gonna kind of talk about SWE as well, but something that I will say is that a lot of times colleges, whether it be SWE or any other student organization, they really like to give back to the community, and oftentimes we don't have enough contacts of like high schools and middle schools and elementary schools. So if you're a parent or someone that or a student that's interested in this, like really talk to your school and push for contact for one of these college organizations, because typically college students have a little bit more time to give back than people who have full-time jobs. So that's kind of an untapped resource for mentorship. So I'd really encourage that.
And I also want to put out there that I think right now is actually an amazing time to be a budding woman in STEM, because you used to have all these resources like almost at the tips of your fingers, right? Like you could get a scholarship to go to one of these big women in tech conferences, but now they're all going virtual. So you don't even have to leave your home. You don't have to deal with any of like the issues that prevent you from getting to these places to have access to all of this, women in STEM knowledge, connections, networks. So now is a really great time to, start, researching some of these things. Like Grace Hopper conference is going virtual. I know that Wonder Woman Tech is doing a whole bunch of virtual conferences. Reinvented is doing the virtual panel series. There's a lot of organizations hopping on the virtual bandwagon. And so it's really easy to get involved, from the luxury of your couch.
I think that's some fantastic advice. And so I think with the last few minutes that we have here, one of the things I'd love to hear is why you decided to get involved with Reinvented. We kind of talked a lot about some of our background, activities, and hobbies, but where are you now in your life, and why did you get involved with Reinvented? Erika, do you want to kind of give us to start off?
Sure. I actually got involved with Reinvented very recently. This was about, I believe, 2 weeks ago, and it all started because I received in my mailbox, my email. One of my mentors had sent me a copy of the newsletter for Reinvented, and I wasn't sure if I would have enough time, but then I found out that my internship got canceled due to COVID-19, so I figured I would check it out, and I'm really, really glad that I got involved. I'm actually the only mechanical engineering major who's a girl in my class for 2021. So just being surrounded by men all the time, I really hadn't had a chance to meet any women in STEM, and I've met so many role models and girls already, and I'm really excited to keep doing this.
Awesome. All right, Peyton, do you want to share a little bit about where you are currently, how you got involved?
Yeah, sure. So I got involved about a year ago, so I've kind of seen the magazine evolve a little bit over time. And I actually met someone that was involved with the magazine at a SWE conference. And I saw them post on their LinkedIn about it, and I was like, hey, this is a really cool opportunity. I'll just apply for it. And I got involved. I just kind of had a little bit more free time, and I thought the mission was really awesome. And kind of here I am today. And it's definitely been a great experience. I've met so many cool women, and it's been a true inspiration. So
nice. And career-wise, I know you're currently around Kentucky. You just graduated, and you're heading down to Florida with, what does that look like?
yeah, so I'm a chemical engineer. My job isn't truly chemie. It's with ABB's lead operations program. So with this program, you do a rotation supply chain, you do a rotation as production supervisor, and then you do a rotation in continuous improvement, Lean Six Sigma. And so with that, I found I really like people and management as well as problem solving. So I'm actually getting my master's degree in engineering management. So, and I'm doing that online while I'm going to work.
Wow, you are 100% a champion. As someone so my background, I went to school at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. I basically talked to them and was like, I love working with engineers, but I don't know that I want to be one. And so they came up with scientific and technical communication. And so the way I explain it is it's a translator for engineers. And I think if I had known about systems engineering at the time, I probably would have done that instead. But so I, got my undergrad and then became became the president of the First Indiana Robotics nonprofit, and was like, okay, you know, now that I've been doing this for a year, I wanted to go and pursue my master's in nonprofit management. Again, really to support that mission of, regardless of anything, regardless of your background, you know, anyone should be able to choose to go into STEM. And I think that that's really important, you know, coming from the Milwaukee area, being in a Milwaukee public school, you know, those are some of the things that were really important. And I heard about Reinvented because a good friend of mine was on the board and was involved, and they were hosting an event, and I was like, I run lots of events, like what sort of information do you need? And so I just passed along a bunch of pieces, and they needed Lego figures. I got them Lego figures. They needed t-shirts, found them t-shirts, and then was like, I'd be happy to jump in and volunteer. And so that's kind of my background a little bit. So Ashni, can you explain a little bit about where you're at and how you got involved and where you're headed?
So I got involved almost as recently as Erica did. I got involved a couple weeks ago. I saw somebody reposted it on their story that they were accepting applications, and I'd always seen like organizations like Built by Girls and stuff like that, but I'd never seen anybody open up applications to be part of it, and I wanted to be part of a community that was making change like that. Especially after graduating from First Robotics, I felt like there was this like gaping hole of like, what am I doing now? And I wanted to meet a community of people just like me. And I think it's funny that you said if you knew about systems engineering, you'd be one. I'm going into industrial and systems engineering at Ohio State this fall. And so I think I'm really glad that I joined Reinvented, because I feel like it introduces me to a lot of opportunities and things I didn't know about.
You know, it's funny, I heard Ohio State and was like, oh, you know, those Indiana robotics FRC events aren't that far away. You know, you can just jump the border and come volunteer. But anyway, refocusing, Kaylee, can you tell us a little bit about where you are now and kind of where you went to school? I think you maybe covered that in a little bit about how Reinvented Magazine was started, but I think that you have a really, you know, inspiring story that you can share too.
Yeah, sure. So I kind of mentioned, I graduated with my bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida. Very shortly after graduation and wrapping up an internship at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, I started working full-time as a mission analyst at L3 Harris Technologies, just an hour south of where I went to school in Melbourne, Florida. And most recently, I just started my master's degree in space systems engineering from Johns Hopkins University online, so that's super exciting. And of course, I come home and I work like second full-time job with Reinvented.
I love it. Okay, so there are a couple of cool things that we've been doing because of COVID. You know, Kaylee, I think if you could share a little bit more about where people could maybe find some digital copies, that would be great. And I'm going to kind of throw up a little PowerPoint slide that also has that information while you talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. So like I mentioned a little bit earlier, because of all this virtual learning that everyone's transitioning into, we are offering free digital copies of both issue 1 and issue 2. So that features former CTO of the United States, Megan Smith, as well as Adafruit founder, Lamore Freed, who's super awesome. So visit our website, www.reinventedmagazine.com. There'll be a nice big pop-up as soon as you get there that asks you to fill out a form so you can get those free copies, and then make sure you find your way over to our online store to purchase your copy of issue 4, which is coming out in June.
Wonderful. All right, ladies, thank you so much for your time. You know, we had a half an hour today to talk to you about, you know, how we were able to encourage women to get involved in STEM, continue in STEM as part of this fantastic conference. And so, you know, I encourage everybody to check it out. Check out reinventedmagazine.com to learn a little bit more. There are some fantastic resources that we mentioned during this talk. And ladies, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.